Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Criterion Learning series on compensation management. I will go ahead and switch over to my browser so we can get started here. All right, you should be able to see my browser now. Of course, we always start in self-service, but almost everything that we do in these Criterion Learning series are going to be in the back end in the administration. We'll show you how it works in the front end in self-service, but the setup of things and so forth is always done in the back end. So, of course, you'll need admin access to be able to do these things. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I have just a tab open to take me over to where the setup's going to be. Now, we're going to look at actually three things when we talk about compensation management. The first is being just changing somebody's compensation, the easiest one. How do you do that in the system? And then we'll look at doing a distribution round using the compensation management, and we'll look at doing an import. So jumping over to HR and doing a pay change on somebody, very simple to do. Just selecting the person that you're going to do the pay change on. I'll choose Emily here. And I'll go to her primary position screen, and I'm going to do the pay change right here. So very simple to do this right here. The only thing is you may need to choose an action that is something you don't have in the system. I have got her just as a new hire as of a couple of years ago. I'm going to choose an action. If you need to have a new value that's going to go in here, this is going to be something that's set up in the code tables. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit new action here. And you'll see the only thing that's really required here is the effective date and the actual action reason. All the other things are optional. Of course, if you're doing a pay change, you're going to be changing the pay rate, I assume. So you would want to change that. But unless you have your system set up so that other fields are required and they happen to be blank, then all you'll really need to do is the effective date and the reason. So the effective date can, of course, be in the past, it can be today, it can be in the future, really depending on whatever the situation is. If you're doing something that is in the middle of the pay period and you're using our time system, it's going to be effective that way. So let's say my pay period started on the 10th and goes through the 23rd, and I'm putting the pay change in today. If I'm tracking all my hours, everything from the 10th through the 18th is going to have whatever the older rate is. And then from the 19th through the end of the period, it's going to have the new rate. Same type of thing would happen with a salary, again, using those same dates. It would prorate it and pay one rate for the first 6 business days, assuming that weekends are not working. And the last 4 would be the new rate. If you did something retroactive and you're using our payroll, we do have the retro pay calculator out there that will go back and it will find all those hours that were paid at an older rate and do the correction, the retroactive amount, to pay them the new rate. So it'll do that automatically. Well, you have to push a button, but it'll do that for you. And then if I do it in the future, let's say I dated it on the 2nd of October, of course, maybe that's beginning of pay period, maybe not. Again, the same type of thing will happen. It'll pay the existing rate all the way through the first. And then on the 2nd and forward, it'll pay the new rate. So I'm just going to do today's date to make it simple. As I mentioned, these things are all codes that you could set up or reasons that you could set up for a change on this screen. I'm going to choose merit increase. You can really do whatever you like there. Of course, if you need a new one, that's going to be in your code tables where you set that up. Now, for her, I'm just going to change her rate. You'll see it's already hourly. I can change it to hourly, or keep it as hourly, I should say, or I could change it to another frequency if I'd like. Of course, we'll calculate the hourly rate if they are paid hourly. And, I put in, let's say, $2,000 biweekly. We'll calculate the hourly rate. Same type of thing would happen if their salary, but I put an hourly rate in there. It'll calculate how much their salary is. So here you go. We'll just make her $1,750. All right, and then keep this as hourly. Of course, I might change other things on here. Maybe she went full time. Maybe she is salaried, or something else changed on her screen here. I would be able to change that. All right, and then I'll hit submit. When I submit, what it's going to do is expire the old one effective on the 18th, and then the new one's going to be in effect starting today. So you can see that if I go to my position history, I'll see the expiration date and then the new information going forward. And as I mentioned, those types of things with the hours and the retro, if it's applicable, those types of things will all happen there. So that's doing it on a single person, obviously super easy to do there. One at a time though. So if you had to do it for, let's say, 50 employees, it might take you some time to go through individually and do that. So let's look at other ways that we can do that. We're going to start with the compensation distribution. So that is our compensation management distribution rounds is right here under compensation management. Now, before you do this, you do need to have a workflow configured. You also need to have your org structure configured, which is like your managers, supervisors, whatever you might call that. It doesn't need to be like directly named if you're using the position management instead, where you have it two positions, but you do need to have that configured so that you can go ahead and say, okay, these are the managers who are going to be doing this. And of course, then the employees that they're going to give that those increases or changes to. So that does need to be configured. I see a question. I should have mentioned, if you do have a question, we do have a Q&A and a chat, so please feel free to use that. I believe we've got some people here to answer those questions. So feel free to ask those questions if you need to, or if there's an issue. So first off, as I mentioned, we're going to need to set up a workflow. I already have one configured, so I'll just bring it up. But you can have different ones configured. You don't need to just have one. You could have 16 different ones if you wanted to. So here's an example. All right, calling it whatever you like. I use the workflow type as the name of it, but you could call it maybe by department or something like that. Of course, the module is going to be self-service because that's where the distribution happens. The group that it applies to, if there's auto actions, we've talked about these things when we've set up workflows in our training. So you can kind of understand how all these works. If you have any questions, of course, you can hit the question mark. That'll give you support on this screen here. Just so you can see how this is configured. The initiator, who would be like the manager who's doing the distribution, would be the submitter, and then the approver in my situation, it goes to the CEO. Of course, you might have verifiers in the way before, because the CEO, you might have notifiers. All of that is configured prior to setting to using this. You want to set all that up. All right, so I've already got that configured. I'm not going to go bother configuring that. As I mentioned, I do want to make sure that in order for it to work, I want to have people reporting to other people. So as an example, I'm just going to bring up somebody and go to the employment screen. So what I'm talking about is here, like Ted is Fred's manager. I need to have that configured. Otherwise, Ted would not be able to put a change in for him. All right, so that does need to be configured in there, whether it's by person or by position, that needs to be configured. All right, so now let's go and actually configure this. So we'll go to distribution rounds. And I don't have one currently active, so I'm gonna just create a new one here from the beginning. So what do I want to call this? Maybe it's my raises for the year. Maybe it's a quarterly thing. Maybe it's a whatever, semi-annual, whatever it happens to be. Go ahead and put in the name you're going to call it. I'm just going to make it something super generic like Q3 merit. All right. What period is this? Now, what this is affecting is when you're putting in or you're showing the salaries on the changes, it's going to show that salary. So in other words, if I choose year, it's going to show their annual salary. If I choose half a year, it's going to show 6 months of their salary. Monthly, it's going to show their monthly salary. Quarterly, just so you can get an idea of what it's going to show. So if I choose something besides year, it might be a little bit confusing to people to see, their salary might say like, 20,000, but really, they're $80,000 a year. So just be aware of that. You can only choose one of these. I'm going to choose year, but I could choose quarterly if I wanted to, or monthly or something like that. Here's where that workflow needs to be set up. You can see it's a required field, so I do need to have that in there. The start date for this, so this is when it starts. So of course it could be in the past, it could be today, it could be in the future, but this is when people can actually start doing this. So I'll go ahead and do 9/1, and I'm going to say 9/30 here. Of course, you probably wouldn't go that far back. You might do it like in October for November or something, but that's when people will start being able to do it. After this date, it will stop being in self-service. So if they don't complete it, it will just go away after the 30th. So you want to make sure that, let people know about that, remind them that they need to get this done. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a effective date here. So you see that. All right, and all right. Go ahead, next here. So when I do this here, I've got some information. Now, you'll see here, this is how much total budget you're going to put towards this distribution round. So let's say you're doing this for different locations. you might have a certain amount that goes to each location. Maybe, it's for the entire company and you're going to give $1 million compensation, you're going to spread around all the different people. That is the budget you can use. This is not the individual manager budget. This is the total budget. So come up with some number here. I'm just going to put in, just to make it easy, I'll put in 30,000. Of course, yours might be higher, lower. It doesn't really matter in this situation here. You'll see over here how much bonus. So if you're going to do bonuses, again, put in a number for bonuses. Let's just do $3,000 for bonuses. And then, are we allowed to go over the budget? So if I set down 30,000 and then I go through and I set the different manager budgets, are they allowed to exceed that budget while they're doing this? Now, of course, you could reject it in the workflow if you looked at it and said, whoa, you're way over budget. Let's, tame that down a little bit. Or, why are you being so much of a Scrooge and you want to actually give them a chance to give more? So you might want to allow this. If you don't, what happens is if they go over even 1 penny, it's not going to allow them to submit it. So that's what that'll be. It does not stop anything if they go under the budget. All right. Now in the grid, we do show things like the name, the employee number, stuff like that, but you might want to show other columns here. So like if you want to see the last effective date of a change to the employee, the max and minimum for the positions, and then performance review results. You might want to show those results to the person who's doing the reviews. If you choose performance review results, you do get this right here to choose which period you're going to look at. So I'll just choose this one. We did our Q3 reviews. Now we're doing our merit increases. Of course, you don't need to do these columns. Like if you don't have salary grades, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do max limit and min limit because you don't have salary grades configured. So you can do really whatever you like here. I'll just put all 4 of them on just so you can see what it looks like. All right, now, as I mentioned, you need to have your org structure set up because here we're selecting the org structure. In my situation, I have 1. You might have 4. You might have anything between 1 and 4. So this is the one we're going to use. These are the people who are going to actually do the increases. They're going to go through this in self-service. Once I select that, then I can come over here and select my manager or managers who are going to be performing these increases. I'm just going to make it simple and choose these 3. Of course, I could choose everybody, but these are all people that are managers. They're on at least one record as a manager. I'm not going to see everybody. I certainly have more than, 10 employees in my system, but these are people who are managers. So if I'm saying, well, why isn't so-and-so on here? It's because they are not assigned to somebody. All right, so that's why people might be missing. All right, so there you can see the 3 people I've chosen. Now I get to put a budget for each person. So perhaps it's all equal. They all have the same number of employees and you want to do 10,000 each. That's why I chose 30. I could do this. Of course, you could do some other number. It could be, Chris has got like 50 employees that he's got a merit for, so he gets a lot larger budget than Ted, who only has certain employees. Or maybe Ted is in charge of all the executives, so he gets a larger budget because their pay rates are higher, or whatever it is. You might break that down however you like. Same type of thing with the budget for the bonuses. Again, I'm gonna make it super easy. All right, so you'll see the totals down here at the bottom. And if I added somebody I didn't mean to add, you can a little trash can them, add somebody else, something like that. Or maybe I missed somebody, I can just go up here and add some others. Oops, tell me I went back. Oh, I lost that out. Let me do this very quickly. I accidentally hit back there. Apologize about that. Here, let me just do this very fast. I don't know why it went back there. 33,000. And I'm going to put all the columns here. I do apologize. I don't know why I accidentally hit back there. All right. Very quickly add 3 managers with their budgets. Because I want to show you the next step, which is actually performing it. So once I have the budgets in here and everything, I can go ahead and assign this out or publish this out so that people can see this in self-service. All right, now if I didn't do, let's say I did 40,000 here, of course it wouldn't let me do this, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. And there we go. Now it's not submitted yet, which means that it's not available for somebody to do anything with it. It's not gonna update anything. But when I come out here, I will now see, should be able to publish it. Hang on a second. Here we go. Submit. So submit has to be done, and I could have done that ahead of time to actually allow my people to do that. Oh, he doesn't have any active subordinates. So he is on people's records, but he doesn't have any active subordinates. So I'm going to remove him, and I'm going to go 15 each. I apologize about that. I thought he had some people. Now, hopefully Yolanda does. So let's see here. I know Ted does. There we go. Now it's submitted. And now I will be able to see that over here in self-service. Just because I want to show you how you actually do this here. And it'll refresh here, and I'll be able to see this here on the left. Now, I also got a notification about this. So, of course, your notifications, last session, we talked about notifications. You might want to edit those. I'll see a notification. I don't have it here in self-service, but I got one in an email. And here's my distribution. All right, so here you can see all of the employees that are reporting to Ted, which is like half the company, but all the stuff here. So here are the different columns that I added: performance review, min, max, effective date. So you can see how they look here. Now, I don't have salary grades really configured on people, so it's 0 to 0. And then I haven't done the performance review, so nobody has a score there. But if I had, I'd see their score, and of course, I'd have those ranges there. Here you can see the last change date. There's their current annual salary. And let me just my scroll bar down here at the bottom. I should be able to see it. There we go. You can see the merit increase amount. In fact, let me do this. I'm going to just turn off these columns because I don't have anything in them, and I want to be able to see the columns to the right. So you'll see each person is listed here. I can sort by different things if I want to. So if I want to do that, I'm able to do that there. But here you can see the percentage increase as well as the merit amount increase. Now, it doesn't matter which one I use. If I type in a number here, it's going to put in a number there. Now, remember, my budget is very low, so I'm going to have an issue here in a few seconds if I put in too much increase for my people. So you'll see here, that is going to push me over the limit, right? 15,000 was my limit on this person, or on this year. So it's giving me a lot. Now, what will happen is I will not be able to submit this because it's too much. But you'll see how I'm putting in the percentage, or I can come in here and do a dollar amount, and it will calculate the percentage. All right, so whatever way I want to do that. You'll see there 1.02, 1.37, et cetera. Same type of thing with the bonuses. Now, the bonuses doesn't have a percentage. So this one, I could type in like 1,000. There obviously is no percentage there. And then let's do another 1,000 there. Oops. And you can see that. Now, I allowed it to go over the budget, so it's not highlighting in red. But if I had not, this would be highlighted in red to say basically I'm over. All right, just real quick, you can push this button to make this full screen, which gets rid of this over here, if you want to see it that way. And then at the bottom is my submit. Now, I'm not going to go through and do that just because, I don't want to, I don't think I need to go through all these things. But when I submit, it will go through the workflow that I set up, and it will go over to the CEO. The CEO will review and reject or approve it. And then it will go ahead and update those employees with that effective date of 10/1 if it's approved. All right, so pretty straightforward on how that works there. Now, he has until the 30th to complete this. If he doesn't complete it by the 30th, it will go away. All right, so that'll cause a problem if he doesn't put them in there. The little green here will turn yellow, then red as it gets closer. All right there, and of course, they might save it along the way to come back in and do this later. All right, so any questions on there in the Q&A? That's where they would go. I think we were having a problem with the chat being disabled, so if you did have questions, please use the Q&A. That I apologize, I thought the chat was working there, but I think that's pretty straightforward. And like I said, I can come back to this. So I saved it, and of course, I might come back in later and do this conversation distribution to do this later. So once they submit it, like I said, it will go through the approval process, and once it's approved, it will update the employees on here. Now, of course, if they had nothing, it's not going to update them. So if I skipped somebody for whatever reason, they wouldn't do anything. Now, of course, I can also go negative. So for whatever reason, give this person a pay cut. It does allow me to go negative if I have to. And the same thing, well, the won't work for a bonus, but same thing will work with a percentage here. So I want to do like minus 10%. Come on, it should work. Well, maybe it won't work. Let's see. All right, I know I could do the number. I thought I could do the negative percentage. So I wonder if I do 10 and then put a negative in front of it or something. There we go. All right, so you can see how that's all working there. Now, the other method of doing this, now just real quick, something you can do in here, you can hit this little eyeball to see what people have done so far. If they have submitted, I can see those things in here and you can see where they're at. So each person shows me, what's going on with each one. All right, so if I needed to, see how it got distributed out, I could do that. Now, this is not going to update until they actually submit it. Even though I've saved it, it's not in here. All right, so the last method here of updating that we're going to talk about today is a data import that we have under the general module, number 9 here, and that is called pay rate revisions. So this allows you to do this in a spreadsheet. I personally worked with a number of companies that did a lot of stuff in Excel, and this is how they did their pay increases. They would actually send the Excel sheet out, and then they would get manually approved, going back and forth through emails and stuff, rather than using distribution, which is fine. We're not going to, give you a hard time for that, but this allows you nicely to make a template that you could use, or at least use this template, after your spreadsheet. So you might have some other spreadsheet you're using for that. All right, now I'm not going to do anything with the import because I'm not ready to do it yet, but this will and I'm showing you here in a moment. So let this download. What this is going to do is populate the template with the employees in the system and their current salary. So makes it nice and easy to actually see this information. So let me switch over to Excel and you'll see this template here. So you should be able to see this in Excel. Apologize if it's a little bit small, but that's just because there's a lot of columns in here. But you'll see each person is in here. Well, you don't know all my people, but this is everybody that's in my company. And I've got their name, I've got their employee ID, their title, the salary grade they're in. This is their current unit code or pay rate unit code. So Y is annual, H is hourly, you see W is weekly. So they're all here. This is a nice description of what that is. Here's their current rate in the system. So you'll see they actually have a mixture of annual salary and hourly and weekly and so forth that are in here. These yellow columns are where I'd put in the changes. So you might generate this template, extract it out by manager or department or something like that, then just send it out to your folks who are going to actually be entering it in the spreadsheet, whatever the approval process is. Of course, it's out of our control because it's going to be an import. It's not something that we have a track on that or anything like that. And then what they would do is simply put in the new rate and possibly new salary grade here. Now, the unit code is going to be the same as this, assuming that they are just putting in the same type of thing. Like if I was doing 100,000 annual, I would want to put in a Y right here. So yearly, quarterly, monthly, I don't remember what these all are, but the nice thing is they're right here. So you'll see Y and W and so forth. They're right here: monthly, semi-monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, daily, hourly, T. I think that might be like trimesters or twice a year. I think that's what that is. So that's what T is. But so you want to make sure that's filled in. And see here like 1650 hourly, that kind of thing. I can do this in here. All right, now of course I might not be paying everybody, and maybe everybody's not getting an increase. I can remove them from the spreadsheet. We're not going to verify like, oh, so and so is missing compared to what's in the system. We're going to import what is actually in this spreadsheet. So if you don't want to give an increase to a bunch of people, I can come in here and I can remove them from the spreadsheet like this. Let me just go down and remove everybody else. I'm just going to do 2 increases. So you can see what this is like here. All right, so I've got my 2 people in here. Of course, I'd want to save this. Now, if they did have a salary grade and I was changing that salary grade, I could do that right here. All right, either one. Now, I don't need to do that if they don't have a salary grade. Obviously, I don't need to do that. Now, maybe I want to. They didn't have one before, but now we're going to start enforcing a salary grade. Of course, you could put that in there. That's really up to how you do that. So let me just save that here. And what I'll do is just close this and go back over to my browser here. Should be able to see my browser now. This time I do need to tell I'm going to import because I'm going to be importing, and I'll drag and drop this on here. So just give me a second to do that. Okay, the name doesn't really matter. I happen to use the same one. I've exported a couple times. That's why it's got the little 2 here. But if I call this like, accounting department and maintenance and whatever it is, that's fine. We're not going to like verify the name of this. It matches up something. We just care about what is in the spreadsheet. All right, now when I go down, I've got a couple of things down here. What am I going to do as far as the reason for increase? This is for everybody in the sheet. So if some of these are cost of living and others are merit increase, etc., I'd need to do separate imports. I'm going to choose merit increase for everybody. There's 2. And then what is the effective date of this? Again, I could be one day, I could be, today in the future. Let's just say it's 10/2 in this situation. Actually, I do 10/1. More sense there. All right, and then I will hit import. Now this is going to verify that the spreadsheet is correct. I got a message telling me that there was no errors, but let's say I went through and I renamed the column headers and I changed them or deleted something that is needed in there, it's going to throw out an error. So what you could always do is re-export out the template and then maybe take your data off of the spreadsheet that wasn't working and paste it into the one that you just downloaded, if that ever becomes an issue. Otherwise, what I'll do is go ahead and say yes, and you'll see successfully imported up there. And now let me go to those folks. I don't remember who they were right off the top of my head, so let me just, in the side here, bring up the thing. Okay, Frederick is the name. Frederick Bailey is the name here, so I will go to Frederick and show you. Employment, primary position. There's my 10/1. There's my merit increase, $100,000. I don't remember what he was at before. I think 90 or something like that. And then Chris is also getting an increase. So let me go to, whoops. This is not the right one. There's another person that got an increase, or he has an additional, he might have an additional position. I'm not sure. Yeah, he does have an additional position. So this does work with additional positions. You'll notice the compensation distribution does not. This one does. So on the side, Chris is also selling tickets. You'll see here 10/1 and merit increase and 1650. Of course, the salary grade is here because I did not have that before, but now I do. And if I go to the position history, I should have done this on the other person, but you'll see here's the old one, expired 9/30, and there's the new one. Now, if I did it through a compensation distribution, same thing would happen. It would add the history record in there, showing the old information and the new. So those are the 3 ways we're going to talk about today on how to do this. Let me see if there's any questions. Oh, how do you get rid of terminated employees on the spreadsheet? You just delete the lines. It should not export terminated employees, though, is my understanding. Now, maybe Connor or Patrick, if they're in the chat, will speak on this, but I don't believe it exports out the terminated employees. So we'll maybe have them look at that. Let's, while maybe they're doing a little research on there, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our webinars here because there is a little bit of a change on here, what we're doing in the future. So you should be able to see this now, which is showing our upcoming stuff. So in a couple of weeks here, we're going to talk about 2 things in 1 week. They're both payroll related. So if you're just in HR and you're not interested in payroll, you can take a week off. But payroll processing, we're going to run through really quickly processing payroll. So it's not going to be like an in-depth, like 3-hour training. It's just, very generic payroll processing and how that works in there. So that'll be in 2 weeks. And then we're going to have a special session on that Thursday, the 5th, same time. But we're going to be talking about catch-up contributions. There is a new regulation out there, Secure 2.0, which deals with catch-up contributions. We're going to talk about that and, how would you do that? How would you set it up if you don't have it set up? That kind of stuff. So we're going to cover that in that special session. And then back to our regular scheduling on the 17th of October, we'll talk about employee management. What that is, mass hire, mass termination, mass leave of absence, not like every single screen, but just some very specific things in there because we don't have enough time to go through everything on employee management. And then 3rd session, or really 4th session in October, a very spooky look at leave of absence on Halloween. So that's our upcoming schedule. As I think I mentioned last time, we will be going into year-end training in November and December. So things like payroll year-end for Canada and the US, ACA forms for the US, some of the things you might need to do for like ending the year for benefits and time off. So we'll have that schedule actually starting next time. We'll start showing what's coming up towards the end of the year. So thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your time today. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to call or email us. We'll be happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, I hope to see you all again in a couple